Sure. Here is section 1 of your script, minimum 760 words, written in a direct, emotional, and high-quality storytelling format, following the outline precisely and without repetition or filler. If someone told me a year ago that my own son would be the reason my marriage would implode, I would have called them insane. But life doesn't ask for permission before tearing you apart. My name is Mark, I'm 53, and until recently, I believed I had everything a man could want. A loyal wife, a respectful son, a stable home. Everything looked perfect from the outside. That's the cruel part. My wife, Diane, and I had been married for 25 years. We met in college, fell fast and hard, and built a quiet little life together in the suburbs. She was warm, graceful, and always seemed to know how to bring people together. Our son, Ethan, was our pride. He was 21, studying business at a nearby university, living at home to save money. He wasn't just my son, he was my best friend. We watched football together, fixed up the backyard, and had late-night talks over beer and pizza. I was proud of the man he was becoming. We had family dinners almost every night, laughing over old memories, trading work and school stories. Diane would light candles even on weekdays. She cared about the little things, and I thought that meant something. I thought that was love. Maybe it was once. Looking back, there were signs. Diane had started acting distant, first subtly, then not so subtly. She began working longer hours, or so she said. She kept her phone closer than usual, often flipping it over when I walked into the room. I asked her once if everything was okay between us. She smiled and said, "Of course. Just work stress." And I believed her. Because that's what trust looks like, until it doesn't. Ethan changed, too. He started dodging our usual hangouts. Stopped coming home for lunch even though his classes ended early. I'd ask him about his day and get short, one-word answers. At first, I thought he was just overwhelmed with school or maybe fighting with his girlfriend, Kayla. I had no idea the real fight was with himself. One night, I overheard Diane and Ethan arguing in the hallway. It was late. I was half asleep when I heard Diane whispering harshly, "You can't say anything. Do you understand me?" Ethan's voice trembled when he said, "I don't know how much longer I can do this." I walked out and asked what was going on. Diane smiled way too quickly and said, "Just something about school deadlines." Ethan didn't say a word. He couldn't even look me in the eyes. A few days later, Ethan invited Kayla over for my birthday. She'd been around for almost a year. Sweet girl, always polite, always smiling. That night, though, she was quiet. Uncomfortable. She barely touched her food. Diane barely acknowledged her, which struck me as strange. Diane usually loved hosting. But her eyes avoided Kayla like she couldn't stand the sight of her. And Kayla looked like she wanted to vanish into her seat. When Kayla excused herself to the bathroom, Diane gave Ethan a cold, deliberate look. I caught it. It didn't look maternal. It looked like a warning. After Kayla left, I found Diane and Ethan whispering again. This time more urgently. Diane's voice shook as she said, "You promised. You promised me, Ethan." He snapped, "I can't keep lying to him. He's my dad." That was when something inside me shifted. A knot formed in my chest that wouldn't go away. I tried to ignore it. I told myself maybe Ethan had failed a class, or maybe Diane had borrowed money from him or done something she didn't want me to know. The lies we tell ourselves are sometimes more comforting than the truth. That night, I was walking past Ethan's room when I heard soft crying. My son, my grown son, sobbing quietly like a child. I knocked gently. He didn't open the door. Through the wood, I heard him whisper, "I'm so sorry, Dad. I didn't mean for it to happen this way." I stood there frozen, not knowing what it meant. The tears in his voice, the guilt, it wasn't the sound of a bad grade or a breakup. It was something heavier. Something that reeked of betrayal. I walked away. I didn't want to believe what I already knew deep down. I tried to sleep that night, but I couldn't. All I could hear was my son's voice in the dark, apologizing for something he wouldn't explain. At that point, the foundation of everything I'd believed about my family had started to crumble. I just didn't know how far the cracks would reach. Let me know when you're ready for section 2, and I'll continue with the same tone and quality. Here is section 2 of your script, minimum 760 words, with sharp focus, no repetition, and no filler. The next morning, I confronted Ethan. I kept it simple, asked if there was anything he needed to tell me. He looked like a ghost. His lips trembled, his eyes wouldn't meet mine. He muttered, "No, nothing," and walked out of the room. I knew he was lying. I just didn't know what about. That same morning, I got a message from Kayla asking to meet. She sounded urgent. Said it was something I needed to hear. We met at a small diner. She looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes, hands trembling. She didn't even bother with small talk. "I can't keep lying to you, Mr. Carter," she said. "I've been sick for weeks holding this in." I asked what she meant. She hesitated, tears forming. I caught Diane and Ethan together. I stared at her, stunned. "Together how?" She blinked and said the words I'll never forget. "She's been sleeping with him. Your wife. And your son." I laughed out loud. A dry, reflexive sound. Told her she was confused, maybe exaggerating. But she didn't back down. She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo she'd taken months ago, blurry but unmistakable. Ethan and Diane in the backyard, too close, too intimate, her hand on his chest. That wasn't how a mother touches her son. I still wanted to believe there was some innocent explanation. That maybe Kayla had caught a strange moment and misunderstood. But then she said it had been going on for over a year. That Ethan confessed everything after one of their fights. Said it started when Diane came into his room drunk one night. He was too shocked to stop her. I left without saying a word. I went straight home and confronted Diane. I asked her if there was anything she wanted to confess. She narrowed her eyes. "Is this about Kayla?" "She's mentally unstable, Mark. She hates me because I wanted Ethan to break up with her." I didn't mention the photo. I just stared at her. Calmly, I said, "Are you sleeping with our son?" She slapped the table, stood up, and shouted, "How dare you say that to me?" Not a denial. Just rage. Guilt, disguised as outrage. I walked into Ethan's room. He wasn't there, but his laptop was open. I checked the connected phone backups. There it was, text messages. Months of them. "I miss you already. Don't forget what we did last night. And the worst, Dad's going to find out eventually." I couldn't breathe. I scrolled through the gallery. Hidden album. Photos of Diane in their bed, of them together in places that should never exist in any reality. I felt something inside me break. Not just heartbreak. Not just betrayal. Something deeper. A collapse of trust, fatherhood, manhood, everything. I dropped the phone and sat there, numb. The woman I'd loved for more than 2 decades had crossed the most unthinkable line. And my son, my own blood, had gone along with it. They didn't even try to deny it anymore. When they came home, I was waiting. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I just looked them both in the eyes and said, "Get out." Ethan tried to speak, but I raised my hand. "Don't. Just don't." Diane cried. Said she'd made a terrible mistake. Said she was lonely, that I hadn't been paying attention. I asked her if she realized who she'd done this with. Her excuse was that it started in a moment of weakness, and spiraled. That she didn't know how to stop. I said, "You're his mother." She went quiet. Ethan stood there, broken, shaking, eyes full of shame. "I didn't know what to do, Dad," he said. "It just kept happening." I told him he was old enough to know right from wrong. I told him he disgusted me. Then I said something I never imagined I'd say to my own child. "I don't ever want to see you again." They left. Just like that, my house was silent. 25 years of family life, gone in a single night. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room for hours, watching the front door like I expected someone to come back and say it had all been a mistake. But no one did. Because it wasn't. It was real. Every awful, degrading piece of it. My wife had betrayed me in a way I didn't even think was humanly possible. And my son, had let it happen. Participated in it. Lied to me, every day, to my face. The worst part wasn't the affair. It was the complete destruction of the people I thought I knew. There's no blueprint for this kind of betrayal. No advice column or support group prepares you for it. All I had was silence, and a crushing sense that nothing would ever be okay again. Let me know when you're ready for Section 3, the final act. Here is Section 3 of your script, minimum 760 words, maintaining the same direct, high-quality style with no repetition or filler. After they left, the silence in the house was unbearable. I couldn't sleep in the same bed. Couldn't sit at the same table. I walked through each room like a stranger in someone else's home. Everything reminded me of them. Her perfume still lingered in the closet. Ethan's shoes by the door stayed there for weeks. I didn't have the strength to move anything. I stopped going to work. I told my boss I needed personal time. He didn't ask questions. I think he could hear the wreckage in my voice. Jordan, my oldest friend, was the only one who kept checking in. He called every day even when I ignored him. Eventually, I answered. He didn't say anything dramatic. Just asked if I'd eaten. I hadn't. He brought food. Sat with me in silence. That helped more than any words could. Still, I felt like I was dissolving. I couldn't wrap my head around what had happened. How do you process that your wife and your son were lovers behind your back? It wasn't just betrayal. It was annihilation of trust, family, identity. I wasn't a husband anymore. I wasn't a father. I was a man who'd been erased from his own life. I agreed to therapy because Jordan said it might help. The first 3 sessions I didn't say anything. Just sat there staring at the wall. On the 4th visit, I finally spoke. I said, "My wife slept with my son." The therapist blinked, stunned into silence for a second. Then she just nodded. I broke down. Not from sadness. From shame. I felt like a fool. Like I'd missed something obvious. But she told me something I hadn't considered. You didn't miss anything. People who want to deceive you will always find a way. You were betrayed, not blind. The guilt I carried wasn't just about them. It was about me, too. How could I have raised a son capable of doing this? What kind of father was I? The therapist said that accountability and responsibility are 2 different things. Diane was the adult. She crossed the first line. Ethan was old enough to stop it, but didn't. That was on them. Not on me. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Diane lost her job. Apparently, Kayla had told someone and the story got around. The scandal was too big to ignore. She moved to another state. Ethan went no contact with her shortly after. I didn't take comfort in that. I wasn't interested in revenge or karma. I just wanted peace. But peace doesn't come easy after something like this. It has to be rebuilt piece by piece, breath by breath. Months passed. I started eating again. I adopted a dog from a local shelter. Gave me a reason to wake up early. The house was still too quiet, but the silence didn't crush me anymore. I started sleeping in the guest room. The master bedroom still felt like a crime scene. I sold the bed eventually. Got a new mattress. New sheets. Burned the old ones. Then, one morning, a letter arrived in the mailbox. No return address. Just my name, written in shaky handwriting. I opened it. It was from Ethan. 5 pages, handwritten. He started by saying he didn't expect forgiveness. He wasn't asking for it. He said he hated himself for what he'd done. That it started one night when Diane came into his room drunk and sat on his bed. That he froze. That he didn't know how to stop it. That eventually, he stopped trying. He said he'd been in therapy for 3 months. Said he finally realized how deeply he had hurt me and that he didn't deserve a second chance. But he hoped I would someday find peace, with or without him in my life. I didn't respond. I read the letter more times than I can count. Cried once. Just once. Then I put it away in a drawer. I don't hate him. But I don't want him near me. Some things don't heal. They just stop bleeding. I sold the house 6 months later. Moved to a smaller town. No memories here. No ghosts. I started hiking again. Joined a book club. Talked to strangers. Let myself feel normal again, even if it didn't feel earned. I don't talk about what happened. Most people just know I'm divorced. That's enough. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever fully trust anyone again. I don't know. But I'm still here. I'm breathing. I'm living. And I'm learning to stop waiting for an apology that won't fix anything. Some betrayals don't just break your heart. They burn down the person you used to be. But even in ashes, something can begin again. Let me know if you'd like this formatted for video subtitles or need an intro-outro for the video. Here is section 4 of your script, minimum 760 words, continuing the story with the same direct, emotionally sharp tone and no repetition or filler. It's been over a year now, and there are still moments when the memory hits like a punch to the chest. I could be pouring coffee or walking through the grocery store when something triggers it. A scent, a song, a random mother-son conversation overheard, and suddenly I'm right back in that hallway, hearing Ethan's voice break under the weight of what he did. But those moments are fewer now. The pain is still there, but it's quiet. More like a scar than an open wound. I don't let it define my days anymore. After I moved to the new town, I kept mostly to myself. I didn't go out much. Didn't make friends right away. I just wanted peace. I wanted to exist without needing to explain myself. For the first few months, I felt like a man living in a shell, going through the motions, paying bills, walking the dog, reading the paper, but not really feeling anything. Eventually, I met Rachel. She works at the small hardware store in town. She's nothing like Diane. She's straightforward, practical, doesn't sugarcoat anything. One day I was trying to replace a part for a leaky faucet, and I must have looked completely lost, because she walked over and handed me the exact thing I needed without saying a word. That quiet confidence stuck with me. Over time, I'd stop in just to talk. At first, it was about tools and repairs. Then about weather, books, the town. I never told her about my past. Not at first. I needed to build something new without dragging the wreckage behind me, but one evening, I finally told her. Not everything, but enough. Enough for her to understand the gravity of what I'd survived. She didn't pity me. Didn't ask for details. She just said, "That must have taken everything out of you." I nodded. It had. We're not in a relationship. Not in the way people expect. It's more of a companionship. Two people who've seen some darkness and choose to sit in the light when they can. She doesn't push, and I don't promise anything. And somehow, that's more honest than anything I had in my marriage. I never reached out to Diane. Never responded to Ethan's letter. Some people might call that unforgiving. But I don't think forgiveness is something that's owed. It's something that's earned, and sometimes, withholding it is the only way to protect yourself. I think back often to the version of me that existed before all of this. I was a man who believed in his family without question. Who trusted too easily, who gave everyone the benefit of the doubt. That man is gone. And in his place is someone more cautious, quieter, more measured. But also someone who values truth above comfort. I still talk to Jordan once in a while. He visits when he's in the area. He told me something that stuck with me. You survived the kind of betrayal that should have broken a man completely, and you're still here, standing. That's not weakness. That's strength. I didn't respond then, but I carry those words with me. The betrayal changed how I see people. Not in a bitter or cynical way, but in a more observant way. I don't assume trust. I let people earn it. And I value loyalty like it's gold, because now I know how rare it truly is. Sometimes I wonder about Ethan. Where he is. What kind of man he's becoming. Whether he still carries the weight of what he did. I wonder if he ever looks at a photo from childhood and sees what he lost. But then I remind myself that some answers won't bring peace. That curiosity doesn't always lead to healing, and Diane, I don't wonder much about her. Whatever she's doing now, it's far from me. That's enough. The version of her I loved doesn't exist anymore. Maybe never did. Every now and then, I get asked if I'll ever remarry. I always say the same thing. I'm not rebuilding what someone else burned to the ground. I'm building something different. Smaller, maybe. Simpler. But mine. Healing isn't a finish line. It's a long, slow walk in a direction you hope is right. Some days, you stumble. Some days, you march forward. But the point is, you move. You breathe. You exist. That's what I've done, and somehow, in the quiet, in the stillness, in the life I never planned for, I found something close to peace. Let me know if you'd like a powerful intro, outro, or title narration line to open or close your faceless video with maximum emotional impact.